Hi everyone, it's Chenzo from Reality Art Pod, here to talk about Survivor Season 47, Episode 4, titled Is That Blood in Your Hair? Last week on Survivor, cracks formed on the Lavo tribe after losing an immunity challenge, which resulted in Asia and Saul being left on the outs, and ultimately Asia was voted out of the game. Before I dive in, I put a link in the description to my playlist where you can catch up on my previous recaps. If you like the content, consider liking and subscribing. But let's dive into it. Back at Lavo, Saul feels blindsided by his tribe because they voted Asia out instead of Rome. Teeny apologizes to Saul for voting for Saul, and says that she threw a vote at him because she didn't want to vote for Asia for emotional reasons. Rome is proud of himself and his alliance and tells them that they can use the steal a vote advantage to make sure that Saul can't use his shot in the dark this week. He also says that he's 110% confident that if they go to tribal, it's going to be Saul voted out. At Gata, Sam is literally freestyling and going with the flow, which he relates to his game, saying that he and Sierra are in the middle of the tribe driving the game. Sierra and Sam are stressed because other players feel like they're dating, even though they both have relationships back home. Sierra decides to cozy up to the girls and make an alliance called the Breadwinners to cover up her alleged showmance. Rachel and Annika think this alliance is real, but apparently it's not. At Tuku, Sue is feeling insecure and emotional, and Gabe comforts her. Gabe appreciates that Sue tells him everything. Sue tells us she's not telling everyone everything. She's shaving about 10 years off her age, telling the others that she's 45, which is a bit unrealistic, but they'd be rude to question it. Sue also finds the Beware advantage and starts following the instructions. She didn't have a lot to do compared to the previous Bewares, but she drops a bucket of blood all over the sand, which contains a fully powered immunity idol that's valid until the final 5. She thinks she's covered up all the blood until they find her.
Hey Sue, is that blood in your hair?
Oop, she said the thing. The previously on for this episode made it seem like they found Sue covered in blood, and fans had the audacity to actually speculate that Sue was dead. Tiana and Caroline totally catch Sue looking suspicious and know that she's up to something. Back at Lavo, players are searching for the replacement to Rome's idol, and Rome won't let Saul out of his sights, which frustrates Saul, of course. Keyshawn is instigating their feud on purpose to make sure that they would never work together. This leads to a pretty funny scene of Rome following Saul around in the woods.
Could I have a minute alone? No!
Teeny and Genevieve feel for Saul and don't like how Rome is mistreating him, which leads to Genevieve approaching Saul, and they have a nice little moment and propose working together. Back at Silly Gata tribe, there's a supercut of Andy being a mess, falling out of boats, losing his shot in the dark, which leads to Sam calling him Survivor George Costanza. Sierra calls Andy a messy player, but still tells him about the fake girls alliance, and that the alliance is called the Breadwinners. Andy then runs this right back to Sam, who feels betrayed that Sierra didn't tell him about the alliance and the alliance name first. He confronts Sierra, who instantly gets defensive and is now annoyed at Andy. They head to their immunity challenge where they need to roll a heavy cube, climb up it, and unlock puzzle pieces that will make a puzzle square. They then need to throw their sandbox through the puzzle square. If they knock the square over, they need to start building it over again. Then they have to dig more puzzle pieces out of the sand to do a standing fire puzzle. As a reward, the first team to complete this gets immunity and 3 egg-laying chickens, which we haven't seen in a long time and always creates drama. Second place also gets immunity and some measly eggs, and the last tribe to finish goes to tribal. They get started with Lavo getting to an early lead, with Rome's help climbing and collecting the bags. Saul beasts the puzzle sandbag toss and furthers their lead even more, and Lavo gets to the puzzle first, but all 3 tribes equalize at the puzzle. Rome takes the lead in the puzzle for Lavo, but is so terrible at it, especially with puzzle masters Rachel and Annika to his left, and Caroline and Gabe doing at least better than Rome, who can't even get 1 piece. Gata wins immunity and chickens as Genevieve continues to hand Rome pieces that are obviously wrong. Tuku wins and gets the little eggs, while Lavo still never gets a single piece in this challenge. I can't believe they were really trying to do this puzzle. Following the challenge, Gata picks Andy, Teeny, and Caroline to go on a journey, and when left alone with Jeff, Rome tries to own his failure while Saul is in clear disbelief. Over at Winning Gata, the egg-laying chickens have already laid an egg, and they're already having the classic should we kill the chickens or not debate, with Sierra being the annual save the chickens protester. At Loser Lavo, everyone is in a bad mood, and when Saul separates, Rome, Kishan, and Genevieve discuss whether to use the steal a vote against Saul. Rome would prefer not to use the advantage, and he and Kishan plot to threaten Saul, so Rome tells Saul that he'll target Genevieve with the steal a vote if Saul gives him his shot in the dark, and if Saul doesn't give Rome his shot in the dark, he'll steal Saul's vote. Saul instantly clocks that Rome is threatening him and isn't playing Little Romeo's games.
That's not a threat, that's an ultimatum.
Now Kishan doesn't like how Rome is playing the game and starts plotting against Rome. On the journey, Caroline tells Teeny and Andy that on her tribe they broke up a bros alliance, and Teeny tells them about the Saul and Rome rivalry. They get a timed clue that if they can agree on one person to lose their vote at the next tribal, they all get to share an advantage, and if they don't don't all agree, they all lose their vote. They pretty much have to agree, and when pressed, Teeny agrees to be the vote sacrifice. They win cute little amulet idols, which can all be used together as an idol after the merge, and kind of incentivize them to target each other to hoard the power. When they get back to camp, all 3 journeygoers are honest with their tribes, but Teeny doesn't tell Rome or Saul at first. Rome then tells Genevieve that Kishan came up with a plan to tell Saul to vote for Genevieve, leading to Genevieve to have a lot of revelations about Kishan.
I'm not here to play safe. I'm here to create some chaos. What about Genevieve?
So Genevieve approaches Rome with a last-minute push to potentially use the steal a vote to change the plan. Genevieve tries to get the votes on Kishan, but she needs to get Saul and Rome to work together to do it, including a performative apology from Rome to Saul. So they head to Tribal in disarray, where Rome again owns his failure in the puzzle, and nobody seems to think they could have done much better than Rome, at least they don't speak up about it. They talk about Rome threatening Saul, which Jeff thinks is fair because Saul voted for Rome at the last Tribal. Then they weigh out the difference between the words threat and ultimatum, and Rome shares that he apologized to Saul and admits that he was wrong. That's nice. Teeny is open with the group about having lost her vote. Kishan seems really happy at this Tribal. He's glowing and oozing confidence, smirking up a storm, and Genevieve says she feels this vote is critical to her success in the game. As they get to vote, Rome uses the steal a vote advantage to steal Kishan's vote, and you can see his happiness disappear in a way that's so sad to watch. Then they head to the vote where the game is definitely afoot. Jeff reads the votes, and there are 3 votes in that pot for Kishan, who is blindsided, especially by Genevieve. So we have to say goodbye to Kishan here, who I had pretty strong first impressions of from the preseason interviews, as someone I felt was obviously smart and had a unique point of view in the game. He seemed to be in a great position in his tribe, being in the middle with Teeny as chaos is happening around them. In this episode, Kishan kind of overplayed, thinking he was a big mastermind in orchestrating a bunch of drama and playing chaotically. He could have gotten away with it too, but his big downfall was clearly throwing Genevieve's name out there to Saul, as that's what ultimately led to Genevieve targeting him. And while he did have a pretty quick fall from grace in this episode, the series of events that led to him going home here, including Teeny losing a vote, were so specific that it leaves me not really feeling like he's a bad player. And while I don't think we'll see him again on TV, I still feel like there was a lot of potential there. So that's all I have to say about this episode of Survivor. Let me know in the comments what you thought of the episode. Y'all are crazy, and some of the comments are more entertaining than my videos, I'll admit. I'll be back later this week with the Challenge 40 and the finale videos for Big Brother 26. If you like the content, consider liking and subscribing. Until next time, have a nice weekend. Bye!